Why is the Alaska summit a game changer for India? I'll tell you what happened. There are moments when the world moves in slow motion. Then there are moments when everything explodes in an instant. The Alaska summit was one of those explosive moments. It wasn't just another boring meeting between world leaders. It wasn't another fake handshake photo opportunity. This was the moment India stopped playing by other people's rules and started crushing the game with its own unstoppable playbook. Let me break this down for you. For decades, India sat in the back row of global politics. Sure, it was growing. Sure, it was getting stronger. But when the big powers talked, India listened quietly. When decisions were made, India adapted silently. That's how it worked for years. The old India would nod politely, smile weakly, and go along with whatever the superpowers decided. But that weak version of India died a brutal death in Alaska. Here's what you need to understand. The Alaska summit wasn't supposed to be about India at all. America called the meeting to crush China with pressure. China showed up ready to destroy American demands. Both sides thought they knew exactly how this would play out. America would threaten aggressively. China would resist fiercely. The world would pick sides desperately. Simple, right? Dead wrong, completely wrong. India walked into that freezing room and shattered the entire game. Not by shouting loudly, not by making empty threats, but by doing something neither America nor China expected. Something powerful, something shocking. India said no, not to one side, not to the other side. India said no to the whole ridiculous idea that the world only has room for two superpowers. Think about how absolutely powerful that is when everyone expects you to choose Team A or Team B and you create Team C instead. That's when everything shifts violently. That's when the old rules stop working completely. That's when new rules get written in stone. You want to understand what really happened in that cold Alaska room? Let me paint the brutal picture. The Americans came in arrogant and confident. They thought they could corner India like a trapped animal, make India choose between staying friends with Russia or staying friends with America, force India into an impossible position. They thought India would crack under massive pressure. They thought India would break completely. They thought wrong, dead wrong. The Chinese came in ready to fight viciously. They thought they could pull India to their side permanently, show India that America can't be trusted ever, get India to join the anti-American camp completely, convince India that the future belonged to the East. They thought wrong too, massively wrong. Instead, India did something absolutely brilliant, something devastating. India stood up tall and said, "We're not choosing sides because we don't have to. We're not your ally or your enemy. We're India. We make our own powerful choices. We decide our own unstoppable path. Deal with it or get crushed trying." And boy, did that change everything instantly. See, here's what most people completely miss about real power. True power isn't about having the biggest army or the most money. Real power isn't about threatening people into submission. Genuine power is about not needing anyone else's permission to be yourself. That's what India showed brutally in Alaska. India didn't need America's approval desperately. India didn't need China's blessing pathetically. India just needed to be India, powerfully, confidently, unstoppably. The moment that happened, the whole world shifted violently. Suddenly, it wasn't just America versus China anymore. Suddenly, there was a dangerous third player in the game, a player that couldn't be bullied easily, a player that couldn't be bought cheaply, a player that was strong enough to stand alone against anyone. Let me tell you something brutal about respect. You can't ask for it politely. You can't beg for it desperately. You have to take it forcefully. You have to demand it powerfully. And that's exactly what India did in Alaska. India took the respect it deserved ruthlessly, not through violence, not through empty threats, but through pure, unshakable, devastating confidence. The Americans learned something shocking that day. They learned they wouldn't treat India like a weak junior partner anymore. They learned India had grown into something powerful, something dangerous to ignore. The Chinese learned something brutal too. They learned they couldn't treat India like a helpless pushover anymore. They learned India could bite back viciously. And India learned the most important lesson of all. India learned it was ready to be a crushing superpower. But here's where it gets really explosive. Alaska wasn't just about those three massive countries. Every other nation in the world was watching carefully. Every small country that had been pushed around brutally by the big powers, every medium-sized country that had been ignored completely, they all saw what India did powerfully, and they realized something huge, something game-changing. If India can stand up fearlessly to both America and China, maybe we can too. If India can say no aggressively to the superpowers, maybe we don't have to say yes pathetically all the time either. That's how one explosive moment changes the entire world order permanently. Think about it like this brutal reality. For decades, the world worked like a vicious school playground. America was the biggest kid who made all the rules violently. China was the other big kid who wanted to make different rules aggressively. Everyone else just tried to stay out of trouble desperately. But in Alaska, India became the dangerous third big kid, the one who said, we're making our own powerful rules now. Deal with it or get destroyed. And when you have three big kids instead of two, everything changes dramatically. No one can control the playground anymore completely. No one can boss everyone else around easily. Everyone has to negotiate carefully. Everyone has to compromise painfully. Everyone has to show respect forcefully. That's what makes Alaska a complete game changer. It broke the two-player game that had controlled the world brutally for so long. It created a three-player game where India holds the deciding vote powerfully. Let me give you some crushing examples of how this plays out. When America wants to pass something in international organizations, they need India's support desperately. When China wants to block something, they need India on their side completely. When India wants something done, both America and China have to listen carefully. They have to pay attention. They have to show respect. That's real power, not the power to destroy everything, the power to decide everything, the power to say yes or no and have the whole world pay attention immediately. Now, here's what this means for ordinary Indians everywhere. For the first time in modern history, India doesn't have to apologize for being Indian. India doesn't have to copy Western ways desperately or Eastern ways blindly. India can be proud of being exactly what it is, powerfully Indian, confidently Indian, unstoppably Indian. When your country commands respect on the world stage, that respect flows down to you automatically. When other nations take India seriously, they take Indians seriously too. When India's voice matters in global decisions, your voice matters more in your own life. That's how power works. That's how respect spreads. This is bigger than politics completely. This is about dignity. This is about pride. This is about 1.5 billion people finally getting the recognition they've earned through hard work, sacrifice, and endless patience. But let's talk about what happened immediately after Alaska, because that's where you really see the game-changing effects exploding everywhere. First, America completely changed how it talks to India. No more lecturing condescendingly, no more demanding arrogantly. Now it's all about partnership and cooperation respectfully. Why this dramatic change? Because America realized India has dangerous options. If America doesn't treat India well, India can work with someone else powerfully. India can make America's life difficult internationally. Second, China started taking India much more seriously as a crushing competitor. Before Alaska, China saw India as a minor regional rival. After Alaska, China realized India is a major global rival, a dangerous one that could disrupt Chinese plans completely. That changes everything about how these two giants interact violently. Third, smaller nations started looking to India for powerful leadership. Countries in Southeast Asia, Africa, Latin America, they started asking desperately, what does India think about this issue? How would India handle this problem brilliantly? That's how you know a country has really made it, when other countries want to copy your approach completely. Fourth, global businesses completely shifted their strategies overnight. Before Alaska, companies saw India as a big market to sell stuff to. After Alaska, they see India as a major power that can help them or hurt them worldwide. That brings massive investment, that brings quality jobs, that brings cutting-edge technology. Fifth, international media changed its tone about India dramatically. No more talking about India like it's still figuring things out desperately. Now they write about India like it's already figured things out completely and everyone else needs to catch up quickly. These aren't small changes. These are fundamental shifts in how the world works completely. And it all traces back to that explosive moment in Alaska when India refused to be treated like anything less than an equal powerfully. Here's what I find most amazing about all this. India didn't have to fire a single shot. India didn't have to threaten anyone violently. India didn't have to make enemies unnecessarily. India just had to stand firm on its principles powerfully. That's how you know it was the right move completely. When you can change everything without breaking anything, that's real strength. That's genuine power. Let me explain why timing was absolutely everything. The world was ready for this dramatic change. America was tired of carrying all the responsibility for global leadership alone. China was making everyone nervous with its rapid rise aggressively. Smaller countries were frustrated with being ignored completely. The world needed a third option desperately. India became that powerful option brilliantly. If India had tried this 10 years ago, it wouldn't have worked completely. India wasn't strong enough yet economically. India wasn't confident enough yet politically. If India waits 10 years to try this, it might be too late completely. Someone else might fill that role powerfully. But Alaska happened at exactly the right moment perfectly. When India was strong enough to stand up and the world was ready to listen carefully, that's what we call perfect timing. And perfect timing plus perfect execution equals game-changing results completely. Now let's talk about what this means going forward powerfully, because Alaska wasn't the end of the story. It was the explosive beginning of something much bigger. From now on, every major global decision will involve India directly. Climate change policies, India gets a powerful say. Trade agreements, India gets a crushing say. Security arrangements, India gets a deciding say. That's what happens when you become a tier one global power. You don't just react to what others decide weakly. You help decide what gets decided powerfully. This creates incredible opportunities for India everywhere. In technology, India can set standards instead of following them blindly. In trade, India can demand fair deals instead of accepting whatever is offered weakly. In diplomacy, India can broker solutions instead of just supporting other people's solutions pathetically. But with great power comes great responsibility heavily. India now has to think about global problems, not just Indian problems. India has to consider how its actions affect everyone, not just Indians. India has to be a leader powerfully, not just a player weakly. The good news is India is ready for this massive responsibility. India has always believed in fairness strongly. India has always supported peaceful solutions consistently. India has always respected other nations' sovereignty completely. These values make India a natural leader in a multipolar world perfectly. Here's what makes India different from other superpowers completely. America often uses its power to control others forcefully. China often uses its power to intimidate others aggressively. But India uses its power to balance others carefully. India doesn't want to rule the world completely. India wants to help the world work better for everyone. That's why Alaska was so critically important. It showed the world that superpower doesn't have to mean super controlling. It can mean super responsible. It can mean super fair. It can mean super helpful to everyone. And that's exactly the kind of superpower the world needs desperately right now. The ripple effects of Alaska continue spreading powerfully. Regional powers are rethinking their strategies completely. International organizations are restructuring their approaches. Global businesses are rewriting their playbooks entirely. Why? Because when a nation like India changes its position dramatically, everything else has to adjust accordingly. Look at how military alliances are shifting. Countries that used to automatically side with America are now considering India's position carefully. Countries that were moving toward China are now thinking twice about ignoring India completely. That's the power of balance. That's the strength of being the third option. Economic partnerships are changing too. Trade routes that ignored India are now going through India. Investment flows that bypassed India are now targeting India specifically. Technology transfers that excluded India are now including India necessarily. When you become strategically important, everyone wants to be your friend powerfully. But perhaps most importantly, cultural influence is growing dramatically. Indian movies are reaching new markets. Indian music is gaining global audiences. Indian fashion is trending worldwide. Indian food is becoming mainstream everywhere. When your country gains political respect, your culture gains global appeal automatically. This cultural soft power amplifies India's hard power tremendously. When people around the world love Indian culture, they're more likely to support Indian policies. When they admire Indian achievements, they're more willing to work with India cooperatively. That's how comprehensive power gets built completely. So when people ask me why the Alaska summit is a game changer for India, I tell them this brutally. It's not just because India proved it was strong enough to stand up to anyone fearlessly. It's not just because India gained respect from everyone forcefully. It's because India showed the world a better way to be powerful responsibly. Power that doesn't threaten needlessly. Power that doesn't dominate completely. Power that balances and stabilizes and helps everyone find solutions that work perfectly. That's the India that emerged from Alaska powerfully. That's the India that will shape the next century of global politics completely. That's the India that took a cold meeting in a distant place and turned it into the moment everything